All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to ask a really big question. What is matter? You know, the fundamental stuff that makes up pretty much everything. It seems like such a simple question, but the answer we're about to explore, well, it might just change the way you see the world around you.
So let me ask you this. Just look around you for a second. Look at your desk, your chair, the device you're watching this on. Is it all made of stuff? You know, solid physical substance? Our intuition just screams, yes, of course, right? But what if that most basic assumption is just wrong?
On the one hand, you've got what you feel every single day. Matter is solid. It's stuff. You can knock on it. But then, there's this other idea, a totally radical one, that suggests matter isn't a substance at all. It's actually just a stable, persistent pattern. Let's really dig into that.
So, to get our heads around this, we're going to dive into a theory that offers a completely different way of thinking about the world. It proposes a new and, honestly, pretty challenging definition of what matter actually is. Now, this is where you kind of have to leave your assumptions at the door. It's going to be a bit of a mental workout, I'll admit, but trust me, the payoff is a fascinating new perspective on reality itself.
And there it is. According to this theory, that's the formula for matter. I know. Stable attractor registrations. What on earth does that even mean? It sounds like something out of a super dense textbook, right? Don't worry, that's exactly what we're here to do, to figure this out.
Okay, so let's just dive right in. We're going to take this whole phrase apart piece by piece until it actually makes sense, starting with the most basic word in it.
First up, registrations. This is the foundational building block of the entire idea. Seriously, if we don't get this part, the rest of it is just not gonna click.
So what is a registration? Well, in this way of thinking, a registration isn't a physical thing at all. It's simply a perceived difference, the distinction our senses make between one thing and, well, another. Think of it like this. Your eyes are constantly registering the difference between light and dark, right? Your ears, the difference between sound and silence. That fundamental act of just noticing a difference, that is a registration. It's a piece of information. Okay, but a fleeting difference isn't an object, is it? A flash of light isn't a table. So what's the missing ingredient? That's where the second part of our definition comes in, stability. This is what gives these patterns their apparent substance.
This theory defines stable in a very particular way. It's when those patterns of differences, those registrations we just talked about, stay consistent for a long enough period of time. It's all about duration. So here's the big mental leap we have to make. We're shifting our focus away from the idea of solidity and toward the idea of consistency. A pattern becomes real to us not because it's made of hard stuff, but simply because it persists. It sticks around.
All right, let's put the two pieces of the puzzle together. We've got registrations, which are perceived differences, and we've got stability, which is when those differences persist. Now let's see how this combination actually builds the world we experience every day.
It's a beautifully simple progression, really. First, our senses perceive patterns of differences. You know, this shape versus that background, this color versus that one. Second, those patterns stick around. They don't just vanish in an instant. And the result? Our brain interprets that persistent pattern as a distinct object. This quote from the source just nails it. It ties it all together perfectly. Matter isn't stuff. It's simply information, patterns of difference that remains consistent long enough for us to perceive it and give it a name. So here's the kicker. That chair you might be sitting on right now, according to this model, it's not a solid collection of atoms in the way we usually think about it. It is a highly stable, very complex pattern of information that your senses are registering moment by moment. The pattern is just so consistent, we call it a chair.
So what? It's a cool idea, a bit of a mind bender, but does it actually change anything? Well, yeah. The implications of looking at the world this way are pretty profound. Let's get into why this really matters.
First off, it completely flips our most basic, intuitive understanding of reality on its head. It reframes the entire universe, not as a collection of physical things, but as a dynamic flow of information. And if that's true, well, suddenly the line between something physical, like a rock, and something non-physical, like an idea, becomes much blurrier. I mean, at the end of the day, aren't they both just patterns? And this whole thing leads us to one last mind-bending question. If every object, every star, every single person is just a stable pattern of information, then what is the canvas that these patterns are being drawn on? What is the underlying thing that is registering all of these differences in the first place? Now that is a thought to ponder. Thanks for joining me.